All right. Hello, everybody. Final project is here. This is in place of the Justice Project, which y'all would have been working on for the past 3 or 4 weeks up to this point. Actually, you already would have presented it, I think, last Thursday, I want to say. So, all right. The Christian Justice Final Project. So 24 points. This will be in the quiz test category along with those assignments that I had to do for Caritas and Veritate for each chapter. All right, due by 10 p.m. Tuesday, June 2nd, so a week from yesterday, okay? The objective here, identify current social injustices and apply Catholic social teaching to them. All right, so basically what we're trying to do here, we've read through this whole document. There's a lot of stuff in there. We want to tie everything we've done from the beginning of the semester all the way through Caritas and Veritate together in one comprehensive presentation that ties kind of all of these elements together, looking at just one single injustice, okay? All right, so it's intended to be a comprehensive presentation, ties together content we've covered through the whole semester, so that will require you to revisit material going back to January, okay? So my Google Slides presentations are all on the classroom site from way back then, so you can find those. I also posted the presentation that I used for my ed puzzles on Caritas and Veritate. That should be a very valuable guide for you, okay? Your textbook can also be helpful. All right, similar in format here to the Catholic Reformation project you did at the end of first semester, except less fancy, no photos necessary or images necessary, anything like that. In fact, no outside sources are required, okay? You need to answer the following 6 questions in your presentation. Number 1, what is the problem? What is the injustice? And where does Pope Benedict XVI discuss it in Caritas and Veritate? All right, and this, just like the end of the first semester, this shouldn't be like a, what is the problem? Next slide, where is it found? Third slide, what basic human goods are being violated or threatened? It shouldn't be like that. It should be a continuous narrative. You'll see it in my sample presentation. What I'm talking about. What's the problem? Where does he talk about it? Then look at what are the basic human goods that are being threatened or violated here. Now this brings us back to the natural law. Remember, the natural moral law is a morality based on natural human goods, okay? Things that are objectively fulfilling. They fulfill human nature. Life, reproduction, educating your offspring, seeking God, living in society, etc., etc. Which of these basic goods are being violated? Are people being prevented from accessing them, and so on, okay? Then that flows into what rights are being violated or threatened. Because what is a right? Remember that a right is a good which someone is owed. So we talk about what goods are at risk here, then naturally we talk about what rights are at stake, okay? So if the good of life is being threatened, then the right to life is being threatened, right? So what rights are being violated or threatened and whose rights, okay? That could be very general. Number 4, what types of justice are involved and why? Remember those 4 types of justice we talked about back in January, February, commutative, distributive, social, and legal. Okay, you might have to go back and look at the distinctions on these things, but which types of justice are at stake here? Okay, sorry. I think I just made 120 people yawn. Okay. Which of the 7 principles of Catholic social teaching are most intimately connected with this issue? Remember the 4 core principles: dignity of the human person, common good, solidarity, subsidiarity. Then those 3 secondary ones are universal destination of goods, private property, participation. Identify at least 3 of those 7 that are closely connected with this issue, okay? And then final question, what does the Pope propose for solving the problem? That could look more or less concrete. He's at least going to lay out some principles or values that have to be respected or used to guide our solutions, okay? All right. I mentioned don't label the slides according to the question that's going to be answered. What is the problem? What basic human goods are being violated or threatened, okay? And there's no minimum number of slides. Mine, just like first semester, mine ended up being about 10 slides, okay? Use as many slides as you need to present the information in a neat and orderly way. here's your rubric. Basically, you got to answer all 6 of those questions in a complete way, at least 2 relevant quotations from the document. You'll see again how I use those. And all references, direct references to the document, you should have the section number included there as a reference. Presentation-wise, nothing fancy, right? This is supposed to take no more than an hour and a half, or right around an hour and a half total. So don't worry about photos or anything like that. Make sure it's neat and tidy so I can read it. It's organized well. No spelling, grammatical errors. And then don't put videos in there. There shouldn't be any reason to, but just don't do that. I want to make sure you know that. Don't put any memes. Uh-oh. That's 2 of them. Okay. Don't put any memes or anything like that in there either. Again. So there's your rubric. Pretty basic. Possible topics, which y'all have on your topic selection form. All right. So I made a sample presentation to show you the way. Okay, a quick note. I do want to do a note actually before I start that. On some of these topics, you may be like, wait a minute, my topic's not a problem. Okay, so how do I make it look like a problem? All right, let's start. Let's look at the nature and vision of integral human development, that first topic. Well, okay, that's not talking about a specific problem. Okay, so how do I take that and let's say, what is the problem? What basic human goods are being violated or threatened by that problem? What rights are being violated? Well, it seems like it's just asking what integral human development should be. Well, what you need to do is think about what is threatening that vision of integral human development that the church is proposing. So you have to know what that vision is, and then you have to look at what things are currently threatening that form of development. Okay, highlight those. Say what basic human goods are being threatened by those, what rights are being violated, what types of justice, etc. And then that question number 6. All right, what is this vision of integral human development that the church is proposing in contradiction to those injustices? So let me show you what I mean. My sample presentation I did, the integration of faith and reason according to Caritas and Veritate. All right. This is kind of one of those things too, where it's like, well, what's the problem? Well, the problem is that they're not being integrated always. Okay. So faith and reason are being separated in certain ways. So we need to look at the injustices related to separating faith and reason and then bring those back together at the end. Okay. So a little title, do whatever your topic is according to Caritas and Veritate by your name, okay, Christian justice, date, and then actually please put your class period on there too. That would be helpful. All right. Okay, section 1, the promotion of religious indifference and practical atheism by the state. Okay, so boom, quote number 1 here. Okay. I always like to kind of start each section with a quote, sort of sets the tone. So the gospel is fundamental for development because in the gospel, Christ, in the very revelation of the mystery of the Father and of his love, fully reveals humanity to itself. All right. Okay, and then that little simple quotation there, Caritas and Veritate, section number, right? And then in this case, it's an indirect quote here. It's quoting another document by Second Vatican Council. Okay. Oh, shoot. There we go. All right. Sorry, this computer is not my normal work computer because I forgot my charger. And okay. So religious indifference and practical atheism, right? So what is the problem? Well, some governments today promote religious indifference, meaning thinking that religion doesn't matter, or practical atheism, which is essentially living like God doesn't exist, right? Some governments are promoting these attitudes, all right? This prevents human development because it threatens the basic human goods of seeking God above all, right? In whom our ultimate fulfillment is found, okay? But it also limits people's ability to seek truth and to properly educate and form their children, okay, which are also necessary for human fulfillment. Okay, so there you have it. What's the problem? Well, the problem is that some governments are promoting these things that are antithetical to faith, okay? They are contrary to faith. And basic human goods being threatened, seeking God, all right, necessary for fulfillment, as well as seeking truth and educating and forming your children according to the truth, all right? So then next question, what rights are being violated? Okay, hence this violates the people's right to religious freedom, the right to seek God, as well as their rights to seek the truth and to obtain a proper education, all right? So those are basic goods that you're entitled to, okay? As a human being, you should have the right to seek God because that's part of the human vocation, all right? And that's the thing that's ultimately most fulfilling to us. And in order to do that, you've got to be able to seek the truth, and you need access to a good education, which includes the ability to seek God. So those rights are being violated when governments promote religious indifference. Okay. The promotion of religious indifference and or practical atheism by a government is primarily a violation of social justice, okay? Because the government is creating structures of laws and using the means of communication to violate the rights of its citizens. So remember what social justice is. Social justice has to do with structural problems in society where society is set up in a way that prevents people from achieving fulfillment. Okay, so what is the structure of society? Well, laws certainly are part of the structure of society. And then the government using the means of communication to communicate certain messages to the people. Okay, so it's a matter of social justice because there are structural barriers to pursuing God, seeking God. And it also indirectly results in the people themselves violating legal justice. Okay, what is legal justice? It's me as an individual fulfilling my responsibilities to the community. Okay, it's not just following the law, it's me fulfilling my responsibilities to the community. All right, so religious indifference, practical atheism indirectly lead to the people themselves violating legal justice because they fail to fulfill their duties to promote the common good of the community, because the common good includes worshiping God. Okay, so without that orientation towards God, okay, the sort of optimal social conditions that the common good is talking about don't exist. All right. Okay, so two types of justice there, social and legal, both being violated by this. What principles of Catholic social teaching does it violate? At least three of them. Okay, dignity of the human person. Why? Because it fails to respect the spiritual nature of the human person and that transcendent destiny that we have. Okay, and it prevents the spiritual development of the people. Okay, so almost all of these, a little spoiler here, will in some way violate the dignity of the human person. Okay, the common good then. It's violating the common good because it fails to create those optimal conditions for human fulfillment, because it makes it more difficult for people to seek God. All right, obviously a problem. And then third, I put solidarity, could have put subsidiarity or other ones too, but the government's acting contrary to its people's best interests rather than promoting them, right? And remember, solidarity is uniting your interests with the interests of other people, working for their own good, for their good as well, okay? All right, so those are three principles that the government promoting these things violates. Okay, so that's the problem. On the other side, the integration of faith and reason, okay? The Pope says that the correlation between the multiple elements of integral human development requires a commitment to foster the interaction of the different levels of human knowledge in order to promote the authentic development of peoples. This means that moral evaluation and scientific research must go hand in hand. Moral evaluation and scientific research must go hand in hand, and that charity must animate them in a harmonious, interdisciplinary whole marked by unity and distinction. Okay, what's that saying? Basically, you got to integrate science and morality and these other fields in the humanities, right? All right, so the integration of faith and reason. Human knowledge without divine revelation is incomplete, and it can't indicate by itself the direction. Hold on, June, I'm making a video. Hold on. Okay.
Why these guys are all tied up?
Because you tied them up.
Well, here's why they're tied up. So that they can't walk away because they're sick.
Okay.
I don't want them to make other people sick.
All right, so they're in quarantine. Sounds relevant. All right, thanks, honey. Okay, so They got the corona. All right, good to know. So human knowledge without divine revelation is incomplete and can't indicate by itself the direction for human development. We've talked about this, right? So the Pope, again, says Jesus Christ fully reveals humanity to itself and thereby reveals what integral human development means, okay? Without knowing ourselves fully, which we do through the gospel, then we don't know how to develop ourselves in the proper way. Therefore, governments should not promote religious indifference or practical atheism, but should allow for religious freedom and should promote the integration of the sciences with faith. Okay, so there's the solution. Again, it's not specific, okay, but it's saying is a general guideline, right? Human knowledge isn't complete without revelation, so governments shouldn't be promoting these things that are contrary to faith, but should allow religious freedom and promote the integration of the sciences with faith. Okay, so different fields of human knowledge, which include science and philosophy and theology, they should collaborate to direct human development. Okay, that's the solution. Now, how does that look in concrete terms? Well, that's for you as experts in your fields to work out. Okay, the Pope can't, from Rome, say specifically how you should do your job here in Michigan. Okay, but this is a guideline. These are principles that we need to incorporate into our work. Okay, and then I close with a third quote, bonus quote. The Church's social doctrine, which has an important interdisciplinary dimension, can exercise in this perspective a function of extraordinary effectiveness. It allows faith, theology, metaphysics, and science to come together in a collaborative effort in the service of humanity. It is here above all that the Church's social doctrine displays its dimension of wisdom, right? And so that just kind of puts the bow on top and says this is what the Pope is talking about. Okay, so perhaps you noticed there's not a ton of detail. There's not a ton of, not necessarily a ton of depth, actually. It's pretty much a summary, okay? But it does have all 6 of those questions being answered, okay? And it presents it as what's the injustice and then what's the solution, okay? I hope that helps clarify things. If you've got specific questions, again, Friday, next Monday, and next Tuesday, I will be on Zoom from noon to 1. Otherwise, just send me emails, and I'm adding your names to the list of topics as we go. All right. And hopefully this is helpful.